All right. I hope everybody is able to hear me. Sorry for that glitch, but good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here to attend this session. I am Manish Gurnani, CTO at KSolves India Limited. It is indeed an honor to be associated with the Big Data London conference today, and I'm delighted to be here among such a distinguished audience. All right, so today I'll be talking about one of our flagship products, the Data Flow Manager, or DFM as we call it. DFM is an enterprise-grade ETL platform built on open source foundations. Using DFM, you can do ETL development, you can do ETL deployment at approximately 70 to 80% lower cost compared to any other ETL platform out there in the market. This is not an aspiration, this is a reality, okay? All right, so before I start with the presentation, one quick check. Are you aware of what ETL is? Anybody? What is an ETL? Maybe a raise of hands. Perfect. Anybody has used NiFi as a ETL? Perfect, great. It will be interesting. Okay, so let's start. So what is the challenge that we have been seeing with open source? So to give a background, KSolves is a publicly listed firm in India. We are listed on both the major stock exchanges of India, NSE as well as BSE. And we have been working with open source big data technologies for almost a decade. NiFi has been one of those technologies, and we contribute to the source code of Apache NiFi. Similarly, we contribute to source code of a couple of other open source technologies also. During this journey, we realized that when you're building ETLs using NiFi, the platform does its job of ETL execution extremely well. But where it lacks is certain enterprise-grade features. What are those? You don't have a centralized access management. If you need to set up a new cluster, you have to do it manually, or you have to write your own custom script to do that. In case if you need to add any node to that cluster, again, a manual process, NiFi admin has to be involved. Quite time-taking process. Then, during the cluster setup, again, any configuration has to be done manually. If you have to configure any ETL, you have to do that manually. If you have to do that deployment of that ETL, you again have to do that manually, right? And then last but not the least, you spend a considerable time developing that ETL from scratch and then deploying that ETL through your different environments, maybe lower level to UAT to production, right? Again, that is also cumbersome and time-taking. So we have been seeing these things for quite some time, and we felt, can we do something about it to bridge this gap? That's how the idea of DFM was born. So what does DFM bring to the table? It can completely help you streamline your data flow deployments. DFM has out-of-the-box support for launching clusters. It can launch clusters within few minutes, what would have been taking otherwise at least a day for a NiFi admin to do that. Second, it has out-of-box security. So you can easily integrate DFM with your existing LDAP, let's say SSO or Kerberos. Any clusters launched using DFM are automatically SSL enabled. Third, it helps in ensuring your ETL development time and deployment time is minimal. DFM has complete automation, not only for ETL generation, but ETL deployment also. And I'll show that in a live demo right now. Fourth, DFM has inbuilt observability metrics. And those metrics are not just your server metrics, not just CPU and RAM. It captures essential metrics for your ETL health. How many processes are right now running? What is the flow volume for that ETL? So this can help identify any hotspots before it becomes a big issue. Next, it comes out of box with almost 300 to 400 connectors, which allow you to integrate any data source. So you can be Kafka, it can be any IoT device, it can be any database, SQL, no SQL. You don't have to write boilerplate code to connect to that. DFM has inbuilt solution for that. Last but not the least, it can be used to run both real-time as well as batch processing. Okay, so NiFi is the inherent ETL engine for DFM. With DFM, we have supercharged that. So it is not replacing NiFi, but think of it like a remote control which is supercharging your NiFi internally. So you have the freedom of running open source NiFi and using DFM on top of that. So what do you get with DFM? Number one, like I said, it helps to reduce your cost by almost 75%. No other ETL tool out there in the market can compete with this. Second, it gives you enterprise-grade features. And then with DFM, we also provide you 24/7 support of your entire NiFi as well as your ETL environment. Okay, so time to go for a live demo. So this is how DFM looks. Okay, this is not being shared, so let me share this screen. All right. So once DFM is installed, this is how it looks like. There are a few configurations that needs to be done before it can be handed over to your NiFi operations team. So what are those? With DFM, the first step that needs to be done is there's a concept of roles and permissions in DFM. These are like fine-grained access permissions which define what a user can do using DFM on your NiFi clusters. You can create these roles as per your wish, and you can associate these permissions to those roles. Next, DFM has an inbuilt integration with the LDAP. You can provide your LDAP connection details over here. It will connect to that LDAP and pull in all the details of the users from over there as per the configuration. Third that needs to be done is these users have to be mapped to these roles. That happens on the user management screen. Over here, you have users and the roles mapped. So now your users are bound by those permissions, what they can do on those NiFi clusters using DFM. Once this is done, the last step that needs to be done is onboarding of clusters in DFM. Now there are two ways. You can either launch a completely new cluster from within DFM, or you can, if you already have a running NiFi cluster, it can be on cloud, it can be anywhere. You can just onboard that cluster into DFM. You have to provide just the credentials of the cluster and credentials of the registry. And that cluster will be listed within DFM. Once this is done, you can hand over DFM to your operations team and they can start using it to do real data flow deployments. Let's see how to do that. So let's say as an NiFi admin, I have a request from my development team that they have developed an ETL flow that needs to be now pushed into let's say production environment or UAT environment. How do I do that? So I log into DFM and then I need to deploy that flow into my UAT target, into my UAT cluster. So what I do is I log into that UAT cluster and there's a button which does that login and log out. Right now I'm already logged in. So this also shows me that green bar indicates that all the nodes in my DFM cluster, in my NiFi cluster are all up and running. So I get immediate health check. Once this is done, I go to process groups. Over here, I now have to deploy the process group as per the request. I go to deploy. I select the data bucket. So let's say, I select data ingestion. I select a flow, let's say file transfer. And then I can select the version of data flow. I select, let's say, version 2. I click on continue. Now this is again very interesting feature of DFM. The green indicates data flows which are already running and deployed on my NiFi cluster. This is exactly a mini map of my NiFi UI. So I know exactly where my data flows are kept on that NiFi UI. The orange indicates the data flow that I'm trying to deploy, and I can drag and drop it anywhere onto this canvas. So let's say I drag and drop it on top of these two green. Okay, so this way I'm saying that when you deploy the data flow, put it at this place in my canvas. I click on continue. Again, within DFM, I have the option of configuring all my ETL parameters, parameter context, controller services, without logging into NiFi UI. I can do all of that from within DFM control panel itself. So I can do all of those changes over here itself. Let's say I'm good with this. I click on continue. We also have a feature of flow validation. What are these? These are like some simple rules which you can use to validate that your ETL is developed correctly or not. You can select those rules. It's optional. You can add your custom rules to that. Let's say I've selected 2 rules and I do the validation now. The validation becomes clear. So I know that the basic checks of my flow deployment are okay. DFM displays me a summary. It also has an option of post-deployment stage. So whether do I want to keep the flow started or stopped once the deployment is done. Let's say I want to keep this flow started once the deployment is done. I select on to start and select on to confirm. I click on to deploy. DFM will now do the magic. It will bring that flow from the registry. It will do all the validation, all the checks. It will set up the configuration, it will set up the parameters, and then actually deploy that flow in my NiFi cluster. And you can see within a few seconds it has done that. I do not need to log into NiFi UI, but just to reference it, I'm showing that these are the 2 processes which were deployed there earlier, and this is the new process which has been just deployed via DFM. Within few seconds, DFM has done the complete deployment of my data flow using, in my NiFi cluster. All right, going back. So this was an immediate deployment, but many times there's a chance that I want to do a data flow deployment during off business hours, maybe during a weekend, maybe during my night time, when my system is less in use. So we have an option, what we call as scheduled deployment. Everything remains same. All that it does is, you have an option of selecting. Okay. So over here, you have an option of selecting the time of deployment. Okay, you can select what time I want to do this deployment. Let's say I want to do it on Saturday. Let's say at let's say midnight. Okay, once this is done, DFM will completely take care of this deployment at the designated time. No NiFi person needs to be available to execute this. So this way, I can pre-plan my deployments well in advance, almost a week or almost a month in advance, right? What we also have a capability in this is what we call as an approval flows. So sometimes what happens is, let's say I have scheduled a deployment. Again, this is all configurable. But as an admin, I want that any deployment which are being scheduled, I want to review those deployments before they actually get executed. So we have an approval workflow over here. Whenever a deployment is scheduled, an admin will get an email telling him who has scheduled the deployment at what time and whether he wants to approve it or reject it. So he can come to the approver screen. This can also be used in this way that, let's say, configuration of ETLs is complex. So maybe my developers, I give them the right to do this configuration on production, but I do not want to give them the right to execute the deployment. So they can only do the configuration, but the execution will be done by the actual admin. So I can use it in either way. In any case, approval screen shows me which deployment has been scheduled, what time, who has scheduled it, and I have the option to either approve or reject it. Once I approve it, this deployment will execute without any further manual intervention at the designated time. All right. Next feature is about compliance. Anything which is happening in my clusters is captured as an immutable audit log on DFM. And I can view these audit logs over here. I have the option to filter those audit logs. I have the option to download them. I have the option to, sort of verify them anytime. Very important from perspective of compliance. Okay. Then we have what we call a dashboard. Now this dashboard captures essential ETL metrics, the essential flow metrics at a cluster level. You can have your alerting, monitoring, configuring on top of this. This is in advance to what you will have, let's say your cluster health, CPU and RAM. This is over and top of that. You can even drill it down to a specific ETL process. So you can, let's say, drill it down to a single ETL flow. This is very useful when you are trying to identify any problem or identifying any hotbed. Okay, so this was all about your operations part. With DFM, we also have a capability of flow creation. So there are two ways. There's an option of data flow inventory. Now this data flow inventory is a pre-validated, pre-tested ETL flows of almost 300 to 400 processes, which is available for you to use. Instead of developing from scratch, just search in data flow inventory and you find something which is relevant. Your developers need not start from scratch. They can use the inventory directly to do that deployment. They save considerable development time. In case if this does not suffice, we also have AI-generated data flows. So you can type in your prompt over here and DFM will generate that data flow for you completely from scratch. We also have pre-generated prompts. So any prompt that you generate will also be added to this automatically. All right. So that was about the features of DFM in live. Going back to my presentation. All right. Okay. Okay, so I have a success story also of a customer. This is a customer who has been using DFM for almost a year today. They are a multi-billion-dollar company, a big shipping giant based in the North Americas. They have a huge NiFi setup, 50 nodes, 400 cores, and they do deployment of almost 200 data flows, on a weekly basis. So a huge manual effort was going in that. They had been using an enterprise, ETL platform earlier, costing almost $1 million in a year. And on top of that, they were spending 600K USD as human cost. With DFM, their total costs have come down to 225K USD. That is a decrease of 86%. And with this, they are still able to manage all of their ETL deployments seamlessly. In fact, they are able to do it better. There are lesser, redeployments. They have eliminated completely redeployments. They are 90% more efficient today, and we are also providing them 24/7 support of their entire ETL environment. We have a video testimonial for this client, and we are happy to share that too. Right? We have a booth I-60. Feel free to drop there and discuss more onto this. All right, so in case how can DFM help you? In case if you are already using NiFi, DFM can help you optimize your operations. In case you are looking to migrate from some other ETL platforms, maybe Informatica, maybe Cloudera, maybe anything, we can provide DFM to you at a comparatively lesser cost. The total cost of ownership will be comparatively low. We also provide 24/7 support. In case you're new to ETL, looking for platforms, give DFM a consideration. Talk to us and see how we can work to make your ETL operations easier. Okay, I'll pause now for any question and answers. I know we have been running late, but open to any questions. We are also there, like I said, at booth 160. So feel free to drop by, talk to us, get more information, or just plain chit chat. Happy to talk to you anytime. Again, thank you. Thank you for your patience. I know we have been running late, but thank you. Appreciate that. Have a good day.